Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to talk about a real head-scratcher today. How is it possible that America's fastest train can get passed by a super slow freight train? Yeah, it happens, and we're going to dig into exactly why. Okay, so picture this. You're on the Acela. This is supposed to be the best we've got, right? The fastest passenger train in the whole country. You're zipping through the Northeast Corridor, feeling pretty good about your trip. But then something weird happens.
You look out the window and you see this huge, long freight train. The kind that seems to go on for miles. Well, it's on the track next to you and it's passing you. Wait, what? That can't be right. How is that even possible?
And look, this isn't some freak accident. It happens all the time. It's a perfect little snapshot of a much, much bigger problem. And it really makes you wonder, right? For a country that put a man on the moon, why can't we seem to figure out true high-speed rail? It feels like it should be easy, but it's just not happening.
All right, let's get into it. To really get this, we have to look at what's happening day to day on this so-called high-speed line.
So here's the deal with the Acela. It's marketed as this sleek, fast, high-tech train. But the train itself isn't the problem. The problem is the track it runs on. It's stuck on this old, incredibly busy system in the Northeast. It has to share the rails with all sorts of other trains. And you guessed it, those slow freight trains. And guess who owns the tracks? Not Amtrak. So a lot of the time, the freight trains get priority. That's why the Acela is so often delayed and has to pull over essentially for its slower competition.
So, how on earth did we end up in this situation? Well, like I said, it's not about the train's engine or its design. The real issue goes way, way back. It's baked right into the original blueprint for our entire passenger rail system. Okay, we gotta go back to 1970. At the time, passenger trains were basically dying out, so the government decided to step in and save them by creating Amtrak. A noble idea, right? But the way they did it, the fine print in that law, well, it pretty much guaranteed the problems we're seeing today.
And this, right here, is the absolute core of the problem. The law that created Amtrak gave it a totally contradictory mission. On one hand, it was told, hey, you need to operate like a business and make a profit. Okay, fair enough. But on the other hand, the catch was, it wouldn't own its own tracks. Nope, it would have to run on tracks owned by the big freight companies, its direct competitors. I mean, just think about that for a second. It created this built-in, permanent conflict. The freight companies own the railroad, so of course they're going to prioritize their own trains. This quote really nails it. It's like telling someone, go win this race, but by the way, you have to rent your car from the guy you're racing against. It basically set Amtrak up to be a renter on someone else's property, making it almost impossible to run the fast, on-time service it needs to be profitable. So because of this fundamental problem, the U.S. ended up with a strategy that has this kind of fancy name, radical incrementalism. What does that mean? Basically, the plan was to just make tiny, piecemeal upgrades to the tracks we already have, hoping that one day they'd be good enough for high speed. It sounds reasonable, I guess. But in practice, it's been a disaster. It's like trying to turn a bumpy country lane into a superhighway by fixing one pothole a year. The progress is just agonizingly slow. Now, what's really fascinating is that right around the same time the US was setting up this, let's be honest, flawed system, another country was looking at the same problem and decided to go in a completely different direction, a direction that actually worked. Let's talk about Japan and its famous Shinkansen, or as pretty much everyone calls it, the bullet train. This thing is the absolute gold standard for high-speed rail anywhere in the world, and its success all comes down to a totally different way of thinking. I mean, you can see right here, the difference is just night and day. Where the US model is all about sharing tracks with freight and doing these slow, tiny upgrades, Japan's model is built on one simple, powerful idea: dedicated tracks, just for passengers. They didn't try to patch up the old system. They just built a brand new one from scratch, designed for one thing and one thing only: speed. And their formula for success was just brilliant. Step 1, build tracks that are only for high-speed passenger trains. That means no freight trains to get in the way, ever. Step 2, elevate the tracks. This is huge. It means they're grade separated, so there are no roads crossing them. The train never has to slow down for anything. And step 3, this is the really clever part, they didn't just rely on ticket fares. They funded the whole thing by developing the land around the train stations, shops, offices, apartments, creating this whole economic engine that pays for the system. So let's boil this all down. What's the big takeaway here?
America's rail problem, it's not really about the technology. We can build fast trains. The problem is the entire structure it's built on. Amtrak was basically designed with a conflict of interest at its heart, trying to make a profit while being completely dependent on its competitors. This radical incrementalism thing just hasn't worked. And when you look at Japan, you see what's possible when you build a dedicated, fully integrated system from the ground up.
Which leaves us with one big final question. It's not just about how fast our trains are. It's about the entire track we've been on since the 1970s. So you have to ask yourself, is our high-speed rail dream just stuck on the wrong track? And is real progress even possible? Or do we need to scrap the whole blueprint and start over?